Good. Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to see you. My name is Cindy Berman. Some of you know me. I'm Director of Impact and Innovation at Electronics Watch. I joined about 2 years ago with the idea of seeing how we can expand our impact model beyond electronics, the ICT sector and low emission vehicles. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Aindila, who will introduce herself and do a short introduction of Electronics Watch before we present the innovation program to you. Aindila.
Thank you, Cindy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Aindila Varela. I'm a program assistant at Electronics Watch, and I joined the organization about 1.5 years ago. So I work closely with Cindy on the Impact and Innovation program, and I also support other colleagues and other teams in different departments, including the low emission vehicle program and the monitoring team. So as Cindy just mentioned, before diving into the Impact and Innovation pilot program, I will briefly introduce Electronics Watch. So I will just share my screen. Okay, so I hope that everyone can see the screen. Yes, I see. So perfect. So we can start. So Electronics Watch is an independent labor rights monitoring organization which helps affiliated public buyers to promote and protect the rights of workers in a global supply chain. So how we do that is that we implement our impact model, which is based on 3 different pillars. The first one is on public procurement leverage. So what we do is that we support affiliated public buyers in using their leverage in order to achieve respect for labor rights in their electronic supply chain. So we provide support to public buyers with tender development, contract management, supplier dialogue. We also conduct specific training and develop tools to help them implement and meet their socially responsible public procurement goals. We also facilitate collaboration between our members in order to use their collective leverage to drive change in the global supply chain. The second pillar of our impact model is worker-driven monitoring, which is a bottom-up process which is independent from the industry and places workers as rights holder at the center of the process. So what we do is that we train and we work with local partners who are local civil society organizations who monitor selected factories in the electronic sector, but also in mines, in extractive regions, to use our impact, our worker-driven monitoring methodology, which is publicly available in our website. So our monitoring partners, they have expertise in labor rights, but also in the local context, and they know how to reach out to workers in order to hear from them about the working condition in the factories where they work. And they do so by using different methods, including off-site interviews, but also group discussion, and they also conduct desk research. The monitoring partner investigate cases in factories, and they collect evidence that are then analyzed to identify any harms or violation of workers' rights. And they also assess the compliance with national laws and international standards. The monitoring is a long process which can take several months, and it involves and empower workers in order to defend their rights, but also to ensure that they have access to remedy in case of violations. Speaking about remedy, this is part of the last pillar, which is about industry engagement. and it aims at driving sustainable change in the global supply chain. So what we do in industry engagement, we facilitate collaboration and cooperation between public buyers to engage with the industry. And the engagement is done through the RBA, which is the Responsible Business Association, and Electronics Watch affiliates. The idea is to verify the compliance with international standards on workers' rights, to strengthen also the workers' capacity to defend their rights and to ensure worker-driven remedy. Our approach is not about naming and shaming companies, but rather to drive change through collaboration and dialogue between different stakeholders, including brands, resellers, factories, and industry associations. In this regard, we have signed in 2021 the terms of engagement with the RBA, which establishes a clear and time-bound process to facilitate the collaboration between the RBA and Electronics Watch affiliates to be more effective and efficient in protecting workers' rights. So what we do is that we share the findings from the monitoring activities, and we discuss them with the RBA and the affected companies in order to improve workers' working condition and also to seek remedy in case of violation or harms. So Electronics Watch initially started its work with a focus in the electronics sector, but we have been moving beyond this sector with the low emission vehicle program, which has been launched 2 years ago. And we started also monitoring mining of raw materials, including tin, nickel, and cobalt, and also monitoring battery supply chain. In terms of network, so currently Electronics Watch has over 1,500 affiliates, out of which 48 are directly affiliated to the organization, and others are affiliated through purchasing consortia and framework authority. Our affiliates are located in 12 different countries that are marked in green in the map. And we also have one international organization which is affiliated, which is the OSCE. Regarding our monitoring partners, they are operating in 14 different countries in electronics production and in mining regions. Like I mentioned before, so through our work, we help public buyers in identifying risks in their supply chain and of the product that they purchase. And this includes risks such as forced labor, discrimination, or excessive working hours. With our monitoring partner, we investigate case and we also enable remedy for workers affected. So our work is, and our monitoring work is different from audits or ESG risk assessments, because the approach that we have is bottom up, the workers are at the center, and it's a long-term process. And the investigation and remedy are based on credible evidence that are collected in the field by our monitoring partners. So now that we have a kind of overview of what Electronics Watch does, let us move to the Impact and Innovation pilot program. So Cindy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Indila. And so the context is that Electronics Watch, as Indila explained, has a particularly different approach, working with public buyers who we call affiliates, who are connected with us. But we are reaching out to other public buyers too in the work that we do, because we feel that we have a unique model, an impact model that works. We've got a successful track record of monitoring and helping public buyers understand what's going on in their supply chains. but also getting them to work with one another. So in the context of that, we are seeking now to look at going beyond our core areas of monitoring and focus, because we know that public buyers are buying all kinds of things. And at the moment, the laws and regulations in different countries across Europe and UK, Australia, US and elsewhere, including in Southeast Asia, are changing. There are increasing regulations around human rights due diligence, modern slavery, and focusing on transparency of supply chains. We also know that public buyers often have very limited capacity, both time as well as expertise and resources to manage their risks and to conduct follow-ups with their suppliers. We know that there is often very little transparency of the supply chain, and that's something Electronics Watch has worked really hard with public buyers to improve, and that means that we can now monitor in places where we know workers are linked with the contract subject matter of the contracts of our public buyers. We also know the context is that, audits and ESG risk assessments, which often are relied on and driven by industry, are not adequate. They often do not actually uncover the biggest risks of workers, particularly when they are hidden risks. Modern slavery, forced labor, put people in situations of extreme vulnerability, and they're often too scared or placed in situations where they are constrained to be able to tell anybody about what's going on. And our monitoring methodology enables us to build trust with workers. ESG risk assessments and certifications and audits tend to be industry driven and tend to be about managing risks for business. And finally, in relation to the context, as we know in some countries, in production countries of public buyers supply chains, civil society organizations are under attack. There's no free and open media. Trade unionists are often arrested and excluded from the workplace. And so we are trying to address some of those particular risks through our long-standing partnerships with local organizations in production countries. Next slide, thank you. So just to come back to the fact that public procurement is a strong driver for change. Public buyers are buying a huge range of goods and services, from bananas to fish to textiles and linen and uniforms, to contracting large organizations to build hospitals and roads and so on. So everything from very large and very small types of goods and services. And because public buyers are using taxpayers' money, they are not driven by profit, but they have potential scale and scope to use their leverage over suppliers and to address labor rights violations and risks in their supply chains. So we feel that now is a really important positive time for public buyers to start engaging and benefit from the support and the experience of Electronics Watch to address some of the wider risks that they face in their supply chains and not have to rely solely on audits and risk ratings. New slide, please. So the purpose and benefits of this new program, the Innovation Pilot Program, we've got agreement from our board and our staff that we will not run before we can walk. So we will pilot a new program for 3 years, which will help us understand how we best use our experience and expertise in a number of ways that are set out, and that we evaluate that pilot at the end of the 3-year process. So the purpose is really to align buying practices with legislation requirements that I outlined earlier, to help public buyers better understand the risks and what to do about them, using very much a worker-centered approach, which we've spoken about, enabling more collaboration between public buyers, which of course both increases their leverage but saves costs and harmonizes their approaches. The more public buyers that work together on their similar or the same supply chains with the same suppliers, you sending much more harmonized messages and clear messages about the changes you expect, but you're also achieving cost efficiencies by sharing the costs and not having to do your risk assessments one by one. We also have identified in talking to a wide range of public buyers that really their ability to critically evaluate the data and reporting that they get from suppliers is very limited. They have a checklist of, modern slavery statements or human rights statements or audits or assessments or risk ratings, but they very rarely actually look into whether the information that they're getting from suppliers is greenwashing or whether it is an accurate and adequate reflection of the supplier's due diligence processes. So we feel that this program could also really help public buyers critically evaluate the information they get from suppliers, and that means they can do more follow-ups with them. We also know that there are a number of public buyers who are leaders in this space. Many of you that have joined are obviously interested and engaged, and many of you, many of our affiliates, public buyers, have got excellent experience and expertise, and we want to be able to showcase and share that and build a lot more momentum around socially responsible public procurement across all departments, across all government systems. And finally, public buyers very rarely get to talk to workers themselves or representatives of workers or civil society organizations in countries of production. And that's what Electronics Watch does a lot with our public buyers. We enable them to have dialogue, to understand each other's worlds, to network with one another, and better be able to drive change through that stakeholder engagement. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview of this pilot program, we will have lots of time for you to ask questions, but at the end, so we'll just go through the presentation now about the program, and then we'll go back to each of these parts of the program for you to share your comments and raise questions. So there's 3 work streams. One is called knowledge building, and this is about workers-centered human rights due diligence across building knowledge of risks across a number of sectors. The second is more sector-specific program in the med tech sector, which is a growing sector in healthcare. And a number of public buyers have said that they've got very little visibility of this sector, even though it's growing exponentially. And finally, a international leadership group, all of which I will talk to next. Next slide, please. So workstream 1 is knowledge building. So we will focus on a number of high-risk purchasing categories, including food, textiles, construction, furniture, services such as logistics and transport, cleaning and catering, which we know carry huge risks of exploitation and abuse. Obviously, our own affiliation model is in relation to ICT and low emission vehicles, so we will not include that in this program. The second element is really about training on evidence, data and evidence provided by suppliers. As I mentioned earlier, this is about supporting public buyers to critically evaluate the quality and credibility of evidence that they get from suppliers, and then be able to use their leverage with suppliers by raising questions and concerns and saying they're aware of things that the supplier is not necessarily telling them about. And it helps to drive better decision making. So this is not about cut and run, it's about improving the quality of supplier engagement through better knowledge of risks and issues. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And the idea is to run several expert presentations, if you like, webinars, but these are going to be webinars or presentations from labor rights organizations that are experts both in their sectors as well as in particular countries of production. And we will run several workshops online and could do in-person bespoke workshops as well for different organizations, where we would come in and look at your own systems, the own requirements that you set for engaging with your suppliers, and reviewing their documentation and supporting you to better interrogate and interpret that information. This is a 3-year program, and so we would like very much for public buyers that join this program to join for 3 years and commit to a cost of €5,000 a year with a minimum of 20 participants. And that money would go to the experts that we would bring to the organization, as well as provide you with a briefing after each presentation, which would say, okay, these are the so what questions. This is what you can do now with this information. These are the questions you can ask with suppliers. These are the issues that you need to possibly consider building into your contract conditions or criteria for tendering and contracting. Next slide, please. So why is it needed? As I mentioned, very few public buyers have got a department that deals with human rights. We know that many are having to track environmental obligations and commitments. They're having to track bribery and corruption and manage the public purse in terms of value for money and ensuring that goods arrive in time at the right level of quality and value. But they are not very often human rights specialists, and they don't have a lot of capacity to conduct risk assessments. So we feel we could bring some of those risk assessments to them. And these are not the standard webinars that very often industries are producing at considerable cost. The idea is to really support supplier engagement and compliance checks. If you've put conditions in your contracts, it's about checking and following up on compliance and enabling you to look at each stage of your contracting cycle about some of the issues in the supply chain. It's about complementing possibly audits and risk assessments that might be used by public buyers. And each of these sessions is really going to have a very practical application. It's not just about helping you understand what the risks are. It's very much about what you can do about them. Next slide, please. So the second work stream is on medical tech. And the idea here is that there's very little visibility and focus in the medical tech sector. It's obviously huge industry, and we know that it includes laboratory equipment, it includes all sorts of disposable consumables and surgical instruments and so on. We will work with a number of public buyers, largely in the healthcare sector and university sector, to better understand where they are collectively purchasing some med tech and how they might be able to use collective leverage with their suppliers. So this is a complex process in electronics watch, as Aindila said. It's about first we engage with public buyers, we better understand their contracting systems, their framework agreements, and so on. And then we start to ask for particular products in and their sourcing of and their factory locations, and they get those from their suppliers. And through that painstaking process, we then start to connect the dots between organizations in different places, public buyers in Spain and in France and in the UK and so on, who might all be sourcing from the same suppliers, and we would then go and monitor and share information about what's going on and drive remedy through that process, through industry engagement. So this is quite a big new area of work, and we would support with procurement tools in the same way as we do with low emission vehicle program, as well as ICT. Next slide, please. So as we're standing up a new program, this is quite costly, although we will very much be open to consortia that want to join. So across a number of public buying organizations within the same country could be working together and collaborating to share the costs. But it's a phased process in which we first do a lot of scoping and mapping and understand the needs and the risks, and then we start building tools and capacity, and building capacity of monitoring organizations to start engaging with workers in particular sites to identify where violations are taking place. And then in the third year, we would start with collective leverage for remedy, and better understand how to engage with different industry actors in this industry. And we would then evaluate the program, and hopefully by then it's started to build a head of steam, and we could continue that work if it's felt to be effective and useful. And we need 10 participants for this program, and we've costed it out. It will be about €33,500 per year. The next slide, please. So the final work stream is really to build an international leadership group. This is a platform that we would help to facilitate, where we bring not only advanced public procurement specialists together, but also policymakers, so those that are responsible for ensuring that the legislation in their country is being enacted and implemented. Quite often the policymakers and those that are actually procuring goods and services operate in very different universes. So we see that a lot in companies. Your sustainability department or human rights department is driving certain agendas, but the procurement people in the commercial people in an organization are trying to get lower costs, value for money, etc. And the two things do not join up. And so we feel that there is an important role for us to enable better dialogue, not only between those different functions within government, but also sharing knowledge between countries about how they are implementing their legislation, how they are meeting their obligations on socially responsible public procurement, what tools they're using. We don't believe that everybody should be inventing the wheel themselves. There's a lot of space to share best practice, to share challenges, to share lessons and experiences, and so we feel that this would be of value. It's a very focused program. It would involve some just one in-person 3 or 4 day workshop a year, where everybody comes together and spends a structured time together working through a whole range of different issues. And we would do some online connecting with one another and enable exchange visits, as I know is starting to happen amongst a number of our affiliates like Barcelona and the Swedish regions. This is fantastic practice, and we want to really promote and expand leadership in this space. So that's the next slide on that one, please. So I'm going to hand back to Indila. Sorry, would you mind just rewinding on the slides? I hadn't quite finished, I realized. This program, we believe, will take a little bit longer to bring the policymakers to the table, as well as the advanced public buyers. And so, and also the cost will depend on participation numbers and levels. So we're estimating around €3,000, but this would be own funded to join the workshop and participate, and would enable some expertise of sharing of good practice. Okay, I'm going to hand back to Indila now.
Thank you, Cindy. So now to speak about the implementation of this program and the time frame and timelines. So we will adopt a phased approach for this program, meaning that the work stream will start progressively and not all at the same time. The pilot will span from September 2024 until December 2027. And before we dive into the timelines, please bear in mind that the time frame that you can see now is indicative and not definitive. We will probably make some adjustment in the timelines depending on the number of participants that we get, but also on the resources. So to start with the timeline for the first work stream about knowledge building. So currently we are still doing some outreach and presentation of the pilot project to interested public authorities. And the next step will be to share a survey to all the participants of this webinar to sense your potential interest in the pilot project, but also on specific work stream, and also to take stock and understand where you currently are in terms of knowledge of the risks in your high risk spend categories, and also your interest in other high risk sectors. So the link to complete the survey will be shared in the chat at the end of the webinar. So the next step for the knowledge building will be to start in September once we get the commitment letters signed, and the first expert presentation is planned to take place in October and will be focusing on food sector risk. In particular, we will look into the banana supply chain. So other events will take place also in 2025. So like I said before, we will have more activities, more presentation in 2025. This is just indicative. So we are planning, for instance, in January to have an expert presentation that will be focusing on construction. We will have also in May 2025 the first evidence training workshop, and this will be also followed with the other presentation on the same year. Regarding the MedTech work stream, so here we are planning to start this work stream in June 2025 once the participants will be identified, and the first year will be mostly dedicated to scoping work, industry mapping, and also identifying and training monitoring partners and developing a strategic partnership with the organizations that have expertise in the medtech sector and also who share the same value and approach as Electronics Watch. Then we will continue in 2026 with capacity building and tools development for the participants. And for the last year, we will start monitoring and reporting in this sector. For the last work stream on leadership group, so we are planning to launch this work stream in late 2025, once we will get all the participants onboarded. Then we are planning to have the first virtual workshop in October 2026. But again, this will be depending on the number of participants that we will get. We might adjust the timeline. And the work with this group will also include sharing of materials, networking, advice, learning, and sharing and dialogues between the participants. So now I will hand over to Cindy to present the participation and the cost and timing.
Thanks, Angela. So just a few things to say. The one is, as we said, this is a pilot. We would very much like a 3-year commitment. We know that that may not always be feasible because budgets are not guaranteed for three years, but that's our hope. Also that public buyers do not need to be affiliates in order to join this program, and they can join 1 two or all three of these work streams. So there's no requirement to join all of them. Some will be more relevant than others to some of you. And we will be tracking progress and learning throughout, reviewing and evaluating this program, and really seeking the input from those that are participating to ensure that it really achieves what that it meets their needs and achieves its objectives. So we also know that the cost of participation is going to depend on the number of organizations that join. The more that join, the lower the costs will be, because obviously we work with efficiencies of scale. Some may choose to join earlier, some may choose to join later, but it will be prorated. But also those that join earlier will be incentivized for being leaders in this space. In terms of your time as public buyers participating in this program, it will depend which programs you join, but we are thinking something around half a day a month, plus sharing your expertise and engaging with your peers and working internally within your organization. So we do need some engagement, obviously, to share information about your suppliers, to request that they share information with you and that can go into our database. But it's not hugely onerous on you. At the same time, the way Electronic Swatch works is we don't simply say, don't worry about anything, we'll look after your supply chain for you. This is very active engagement with us. We want you to feel like you are partners in the process and benefiting from direct engagement with the issues that you know exist in your supply chain. So that's it as far as our presentation goes. I think we're going to turn over to you for comments and questions, and we can go work stream by work stream, or just initially I think we can stop sharing slides and we could just ask for your feedback on the overall program, or anything that you specifically want to ask about particular work streams, and we can go back. Thank you. Martina, can I just ask, Harriet, can people put their cameras on again?
That would be great. Let me see if there's, I think each person can choose to do that. So please do go ahead. That would be lovely. We'll see your faces.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Great.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm in the office.
Please.
Nice, thanks. Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just had a couple of questions on the first and third work stream that we're considering. So the first one was for the first work stream, how did you choose the different sectors, and also how do you see it fitting with all the other guidance material and training and stuff that is available, and how would you interact with other organizations in the area that are working on similar issues? And for the leadership group, I think there's like a lot of policy groups at the moment, also in the space of public procurement, that just basically meet to discuss best practice. And yeah, I was just wondering, like, how do you see this to be different and than the ones already existing that we are part of, so such as the International Working Group on Ethical Public Procurement and so on? Thanks.
Cindy, you're on mute.
I realise, thank you. Thanks, Martina. Some important questions. So how have we chosen the sectors? Well, we've been talking with a number of public buyers over the last year, 18 months, about those that they are most concerned about, that they are priorities for them. And we will, I think, as Andila said, we will be sending you all a survey anyway, just to find out if there are other sectors you want to cover. And there's obviously, these are big issues. Construction, for example, there are a range of issues, whether it's local construction, whether it's construction materials and supply chains. There are many different dimensions, even within the sectors. So we will follow up with you and tailor some of these sessions appropriately. Obviously, we can't respond to each and every one. We're trying to collate where there is synergy and convergence in interest. In terms of a lot of other, oh, and your question about how does it fit with, there is a lot of guidance out there, of course, and we're on top of a lot of that guidance and monitoring it very, very closely. We obviously are not going to create something brand new. We want to build on the best of the guidance that is out there. But very little of this guidance is actually directed at public buyers. Quite often the guidance is directed at industry and is often generated by civil society organizations or research institutions, but not focused on public procurement. And so the idea is to really try and build on that, but the choices and the issues that public buyers are facing are different from those of industry, where they've got reputations to protect, where they've got commitments to uphold in terms of the legislation. They are different from some of the others. And so absolutely, we're not going to reinvent the wheel or propose something brand new. What we are going to do is try and interpret some of the best of that guidance, both from a worker-centered approach rather than an industry risk management approach, and from a public buyer's perspective. So that's the difference between it. And it feels to us that that is a real gap at the moment. There isn't a lot out there. And in terms of the leadership, when you say there's a lot out there, I'm not sure there's a lot of stuff on leadership out there. The International Working Group on Ethical Public Procurement is a fantastic network. I've been involved for many years, as I know many of you are, but it's a loose and informal network of getting together, sharing information. The idea is to really build on that idea, but to enable a much more in-depth and structured process of sharing information and getting to grips with the tools and the systems and the guidance and so on, and enable cross-pollination of ideas. And the other difference is that policymakers tend not to be in that process. So it excludes government officials who are quite often responsible for driving the legislative agenda, but are not really talking to their own public procurement departments because they don't have any contact with them and they don't speak each other's language at all. And so I think there are some important differences. The networks like ICLE and big buyer networks are fantastic, but they are, again, quite targeted and different from what we're proposing. I hope that answers the question, Martina. I know people are having to drop off.
Cindy, there's one question in the chat that asking, is the pilot only open to European affiliate participants, or are participants welcome from all countries?
All countries, yes. Yes, definitely not only European. Ida.
Thank you. I just have to lower my hand. Okay. Thank you for a nice presentation.
Sorry to interrupt, Ida. Just it would be good if each of the participants just introduce themselves, just shortly, name and organization, so that we get to know each other, please.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Ida, and I work in the city of Copenhagen. Or Copenhagen municipality. We kind of go by both names. And yeah, we are an Electronics Watch affiliate already. Yeah, thank you for a really interesting presentation. My colleague Emil, that some of you might know, he couldn't be here today because we are all of us going on vacation pretty soon, me as well. But so I would have to wait to fill out the survey that you're going to send until he's back, because I think we need to discuss some of the things that I've heard here today. But I was wondering, I think possibly all of the work streams could be relevant to us, but we will need to discuss it, and also with our management, of course. But I was wondering about the work stream 2, the one with the medtech sector, because in the city of Copenhagen we procure some medtech but not others. There's children's dental care in our is one of the categories that we procure, but not a lot of other types of medtech would not be relevant. So I was just wondering, could you maybe elaborate a little bit on what that sector would include? It would be easier for us to get back to you on the survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida, and it's great to hear of your interest. And yes, I've met Emil, and of course, there's no problem waiting on the survey. So fantastic, and you are a valued affiliate of ours. In terms of just the practical question of medtech, it's a little bit chicken and egg at the moment, because we are reaching out to a number of healthcare organizations, and we're trying to understand what is most feasible and most likely, and where their biggest interests lie. And so until we get a real picture of that, so for example, you've mentioned children's dental care, maybe something within scope, but we won't know that until we start to really firstly get, yes, we're interested, and we think that maybe the Danish healthcare system, we might be able to bring others on board from other parts of government, and then it becomes a much more viable proposition for you, when we can start to triangulate a lot of information coming from different parts of government about what your priority areas are and where your biggest concerns and gaps of understanding are about where the risks lie. At the same time, and I see we've got Lennon on the call, which is wonderful, from Taiwan. We've got monitoring partners that are clearly doing monitoring in a range of sectors, including not only ICT with Electronics Watch, but may be able as well to advise us on where they have access to good data about labor rights risks in the medtech sector. And then we would come with a proposition to you and say, you know what, we're going to focus on electrosurgical instruments, because that's where we think we can have most traction. And you might then say, well, that's not a function that our municipality is really able to take on board, and so we're going to lose some potential organizations along the way, and hopefully build some new ones as well. So it's a little bit of an iterative process, really. Carla.
Yeah. Yes, hello. I'm from Barcelona City Council, and for us it's a little bit the same. We are really interested. We already put it in the budget for 2025. I mean, we can only make 1 year provisions because of the budget of Barcelona City Council, so it would be 2025, and of course the funds don't get to the electronic vote until the second half of 2025, but it's sure. I mean, when it's in the budget, etc., we can already send a certification. But what I wanted to say about the medical tech is that, I mean, we do wanna support this because we also, I mean, we as Barcelona City Council, we don't have so many competencies in health, although we have some, and also dentists, etc. And also we participate in Barcelona hospitals, in few hospitals. So we are seated in many consortiums of health. So directly and indirectly, yes, we do buy medical equipment. And also we think it is interesting, and it's also this kind of project that we do to support in general public procurement and medical tech. It's kind of highly public procurement, no? So it's for sure that it's well, for us it's clear that it's and also we would be, and we are trying to, and we will be very interested also if the region, I mean the autonomous community of Catalonia also gets in the project, because they do buy much more than us in medical. So yeah, I mean, we are already talking to them, but we will appreciate also maybe if we submit directly a project to them. And yeah, but for us it's okay. I mean, actually we as a city council now we are more focused on construction materials in buildings. But it's okay, medtech. I mean, we have to do everything. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Carla. And we're going to follow up with you also in person on some of these things as well. Great. I think that we are losing a number of people. I realize that an hour and a half is a long time for this. Are there any other questions, comments? We will follow up with you with a survey following this, and we've recorded this session so we can hopefully share it with those that weren't able to join. Does anybody else want any comments to share? Lemon.
Just a few quick questions. One is it open? Is this series of projects open for both public buyers and monitoring partners? Because we are monitoring partners. I think most of the other participants are from buyers organizations, and that's one. And second is, do you have any plan to expand the public buyers to Asia, including Taiwan? Because I think that's a total different world. I believe in many countries in Europe, you have some laws to bind that you have to do some social awareness on your buy-in, but not so much in Asia. Maybe sometimes they are reminded, but there's no law to do it, to enforce them. So there's a big gap for the public buying in many other countries in the world. So it's too early to put any of them to this kind of program, because usually they just choose the cheapest. Even the services, they always choose the cheapest. So the workers, including the janitors, they are always exploited. So I don't know if you have any program, any plans on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Lennon. The program is really intended to support public buyers, but we will very much seek to involve monitoring partners in the process, in the program itself. But I think the intention is to really, as the key audience, is public buyers who also have got the resources to contribute to this program. It would be fantastic to have public buyers from other countries. Absolutely. I think there would be a huge value in having them from, I understand there is a plan for a new public procurement law in Taiwan, and maybe that'll drive some of the public buyers to join or be interested. I think we're open to everybody. We're talking to as well the Australians about this program. I see Carla's chat. It would be amazing to have the Asian Development Bank involved. I completely agree. And the ASEAN has got various fora. So if you've got contacts and ideas and connections, and we would absolutely love to talk. This is not intended as a European-centric organization or operation at all. So thank you for that, Lennon. Adriana, I see that you have just joined, and a number of people have left, and we've done the presentation. So I'm wondering whether we can possibly share the slides with you. I know that a number of people have had to jump off, but we have time if people want to focus. Thank you. I'm looking at your comments, Lennon, about factories on medical equipment. Great. Very good. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks, Carla. Any other comments? Everybody's time is very precious, but so we don't want to unnecessarily prolong this call, but we would love to keep having conversations with anybody that you would recommend, and can follow up with you. Adriana, I'm not sure where you are from, but we can maybe organize another call with you as you missed the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. My apologies for being a little late. Yeah, that would be great. I'm from JISC, so that's my organisation. But yeah, if you could share the slides, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good. Well, thank you everybody for joining. It's been really great to talk to you, and we look forward to hearing back from you. Andila's just posted the survey, although a number of people have left, but we will follow up and share it with everybody who's signed up.
Absolutely. Everybody, all the participants will receive an email with the link to the survey, because we already lost some people, so they will receive it by email.
Great. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.